Okay, Pennywise Pauper as a trip. Match 5. We're hoping to dodge the 4 decks we already played so we can go for the perfect 5 different opponents. Give you guys the widest range of matches imaginable. Maybe not imaginable, but possible. We're going to keep this hand. It doesn't do a whole lot, but it has 2 Seagate Oracles we can cast, which is pretty good against aggro or control. We're going to not play our tap land just yet. We'll probably be able to find another future turn we can play it. Okay, we appear to be playing against Kuldotha Jeskai. And we are going to Seagate Oracle. We could have Spreading Seas, their red-white source, but they need blue sources too sometimes in their deck. Well, they always need them if they're playing Jeskai, but they typically need them later in the game. Spreading Seas or another Dreamstalker. I kind of like Spreading Seas. If we can go double Spreading Seas next turn, that could be good. Pass the turn. Playing the 3-drop this turn just used up our mana a lot better. Our opponent's going to play a Glinthawk, return an artifact to their hand, so that's the Ichor Wellspring at this point. Play a Great Furnace, and replay this? Yep, replay the Wellspring. Alright, so double Spreading Seas is not going to be able to completely take our opponent off of mana. We're going to attack first, see if our opponent's scared of anything or if they block. They do block, so they probably know there's nothing we can do right now. Take them off a white source, and hit another one of these cards. I'm putting it on the non-artifact land because Spreading Seas still retains the artifactness of the land. So if you put it on Great Furnace, it's still an artifact, and then if they sacrifice it later to, say, Kuldotha Rebirth, then my Spreading Seas goes away. And if they bounce Windscarred Crag with a bounce land, and they sacrifice my Great Furnace, then I'm out both my Spreading Seas, and I can't return them if I want to return them to, say, this Dreamstalker. So I put it on the land that's more likely to stick around. Our opponent has Prophetic Prism, which basically undoes all the work that we're trying to do by messing up our opponent's colors of mana, because they can use this to filter colorless mana, or generic mana rather, to any color. Ichor Wellspring is returned. Our opponent has a very good start. Get 2 of their flyers in hand. Their mana is fixed despite our attempting to mess it up for them. We'll play Seagate Oracle, see if we can find something. I guess we'll take the Cycle Land. We could play a Dreamstalker here and pick up a Seagate Oracle. We could play another Spreading Seas. If we do take out the Great Furnace with the Spreading Seas, then even a Prophetic Prism means they can only make a maximum of 1 red mana a turn, unless they play a red land. Or we could just cycle the step and play a tap land. I think I'm going to Spreading Seas the red land. I don't think it'll slow them down much, maybe not at all, but if it does slow them down a little bit, it'd be good. Our opponent replays the Ichor Wellspring yet again. If you happen to be unfamiliar with this deck up here, this is basically what the deck does. It plays Prophetic Prism and Ichor Wellspring, it plays Glinthawk and Kor Skyfisher and bounces these things, and it replays them and continues to draw cards. It's very good at drawing through its deck. It's very good at deploying 2-power flyers. It also has a lot of burn spells, like Galvanic Blast and Lightning Bolt, to take out problematic creatures and finish off the game. And as you can see here, we're in a huge amount of trouble. We need a Kor Skyfisher of our own to blunt this assault in the air. Oh look, there it is. So I suppose we'll attack first so we can get a point of damage. And we can play a Missionary, play a Skyfisher, and I think we want to pick up a Missionary at this point. It could attack next turn, but if our opponent leaves back the Kor Skyfishers, then it can't. And this way it can gain us some life. Then I'll play another life gain land and pass the turn. So now we're only 3 life behind our opponent. We're still behind on board because they have flyers to our non-flyers. And they have more cards in hand than us. But definitely better than we were doing a turn ago. Ichor Wellspring comes down yet again. Lightning Bolt targeting our creature. We can't do anything about that. So our opponent gets to keep attacking in the air. Now we need to draw another Kor Skyfisher. Our deck is actually really similar to Kuldotha Jeskai in that we play permanents and pick them up again for value. We're both playing Kor Skyfisher. We play them primarily to pick up Spreading Seas and Reality Acid, and they play them to pick up Ichor Wellspring and Prophetic Prism. However, access to a third color with red means they get bolts, which means they get to kill our flying blockers, our Kor Skyfishers, and also throw bolts at our face, which is a pretty huge advantage. With the only disadvantage being that their mana is worse, but with Prophetic Prisms that certainly helps a lot of their mana problems, even when we're trying to Spreading Seas them. So we're going to do the exact same play we did last time, except that at the end of it all, we get to play the Lone Missionary out again, because we have more mana this time. We were lucky to draw Kor Skyfisher, and now we're actually ahead in the damage race. Our opponent still has more cards than us. When they draw for the turn, it'll be 4 more cards than us. And their board state is still better, but drawing Kor Skyfisher once again. And another repeat of last turn, our Skyfisher gets lightning bolted. That's unfortunate that happened twice. I guess now we need to draw a third Kor Skyfisher, and then our opponent needs to bolt that one as well. It'd be pretty funny. And then we can go for the perfect 4 for 4. Faithless Looting. Our opponent does not mind a little bit of card disadvantage for selection here, because they're already way ahead on cards. They discard a Mountain and Ancient Den. And we take 6, down to 15. Kuldotha Rebirth. Sacrificing Ichor Wellspring lets them draw a card and make 3 goblins. Glinthawk can pick up another Ichor Wellspring. And this deck is just a great machine of value. Reality Acid. Well, it's a little bit late for that. Cycle away Secluded Step. And I suppose if our opponent has nothing... I know I say this a lot, but I'm trying to reiterate the fact of how far behind we are. But if our opponent has all lands in hand and draws all lands for the rest of the game, we might have a chance. Because we can take out one Kor Skyfisher here. We'll get the Reality Acid back in hand and then be able to do that again next turn. And then maybe we draw some more cards like Muldrifters and can stop ourselves from dying. Alright, our opponent is going to Lightning Bolt their own Kor Skyfisher so that we can't pick up Reality Acid, which is a reasonable play. We have no flying blockers, we can't do anything about this. Another Rebirth, sacrificing another Wellspring. Flashback of Faithless Looting. Discarding Great Furnace and Kuldotha Rebirth. Opponent's just showing off by discarding Kuldotha Rebirth because they could cycle this white mana to a red mana, sacrifice another Prism, and have 9 goblins right now. I'll replay this because they know about it, but we're pretty much dead on board. Let's see if our opponent shows us any more cards first. The Faithless Looting is not common tech in these builds as far as I know. I don't remember ever seeing it before. So they could have other unique cards that we might want to know about. Skyfisher picks up Prism. Prism is recast. Alright, well, we could pick up our Lone Missionary and play it again. Well, I guess we can. We're probably not giving our opponent any information by doing that. I was going to say we didn't need to, but I suppose we should. Gain a bunch of life. Pray that it will be enough, even though we know it will not be. Our only flying blocker gets blasted, and we're dead in 2 attacks again. Now, I'm not going to go out and say that Kuldotha Jeskai is a strictly better version of what Acid Trip is trying to do, but it certainly seems like it this game. You get all the bouncing card synergy and drawing card synergy, and while you lack in the power of Reality Acid, being able to remove any permanent, you gain in that Lightning Bolts and Galvanic Blast can remove basically any permanent you care about, including your opponent most of the time, when you just aim the burn at their face. Opponent flashes back lootings after lootings, discarding some lands, Journey to Nowhere. Yeah, that's not going to be enough to save us in time. So they look like a stock list, except they also include Faithless looting. Alright, time to sideboard. So how I'm going to board here is I'm going to bring in 2 Kor Sanctifiers to deal with problematic artifacts. 1 Serrated Arrows, just as a value card. I like having them for long grinding matches to be able to reuse over and over again. A Stormbound Geist, as it's a great blocker against the deck. 1 Counterspell, just to try to stop any powerful spells that might be going on. I'm going to take out 4 Spreading Seas because it just fixes their blue mana for them. And although I can get them early on, like I did that game, if I draw a bunch of them, it's not very likely to work. I'm going to take out Face Fetters. Gaining life is fine, but their ability to pick up permanents again with Kor Skyfisher means that they can just pick up whenever I put the Face Fetters on, and it's basically a waste of a card. Lastly, I'm going to bring in 1 Dispel over 1 Momentary Blink. The reason is they basically do the same thing. Dispel counters a burn spell, and Momentary Blink counters a burn spell by bouncing the target. But Dispel can counter burn spell even if it's targeting my face, and it's also cheaper than Momentary Blink, so I like having a mix in the deck. Alright, we get to be on the play. Our hand is extremely unexciting, but I think we can keep it. We have a Preordain. We can cycle away this step using the Chancery's mana. See what Preordain finds. An island that I do not need, and a Seagate Oracle, which is perfectly fine, so I'll keep that. You'll note that I did not board in Holy Light, and the reason for that is I have blockers for the goblins. They're not really that relevant when I'm playing things like Seagate Oracle in my deck. Counterspell is a little bit awkward whenever we're getting our blue mana from our bounce lands, since we have to hold up more than 2 mana to be able to counter something, but probably still worth it. Play a Seagate Oracle here. Another Seagate Oracle or a Dreamstalker. I think I'll take the Oracle. If I had a Reality Acid in hand, I might want an additional bounce creature, but I do not. Opponent has a Prism. And they have a land drop. And they're going to have to discard a hand size. Kuldotha Rebirth goes away. So I think I'm just going to play this step here and pass. I would like to be able to counterspell our opponent's first Kor Skyfisher, or maybe even a Glint Hawk. Keep them off the board. Excellent. So they weren't able to follow that up with another Skyfisher or Glinthawk, which is very good for us. I'm going to play another Seagate Oracle here. Lone Missionary or Dreamstalker, number 2. I think I'd rather just have Lone Missionary. At this point, I'm going to pick up the step. I might end up cycling it away. Our opponent casts Faithless Looting, probably digging for creatures since they didn't have one last turn. They discard 2 more Kuldotha Rebirths, so they have 3 in the bin now. And they do find a Glinthawk. That means they can pick up the Prism and replay it by tapping Boros Garrison. And they have a Windsguard Crag. So I think I'm going to go for the full value plan here of using Reality Acid instead of Journey to Nowhere to get rid of that. Kor Skyfisher, keep my beat down on. Play my tap land and attack. Now I have Reality Acid plus Dreamstalker lined up again. Now I'm really wishing this Lone Missionary was another Dreamstalker so I could keep up the Reality Acid shenanigans. Flame Slash targeting Skyfisher. Faithless Looting is flashback. Opponent's probably still digging for more creatures. And they discard Mountains. Okay. So now I'm going to get rid of their bounce land to try to limit their mana. Play a Dreamstalker. Pick back up. And I have 2 Journeys in hand, so not having any more bounce creatures to pair with this Reality Acid is fine. Our opponent decides to bolt our face. I'm not really sure what that's about. I guess that means that they don't care about the Seagate Oracles attacking them repeatedly, and they think they're going to kill us before it matters. Well, we drew another Skyfisher, so I think we're just going to keep up with the land destruction plan. I could potentially get rid of this Prophetic Prism here to turn off blue mana for Mulldrifters, but if I get rid of one of their lands, that just keeps them that much farther away from hard casting Mulldrifter. And I don't really care if they evoke it at this point. Our opponent's floating the mana. Presumably cast a bolt. At our face again, not the Kor Skyfisher. Well, this Lone Missionary plus Lone Missionary Blinked is going to definitely surprise our opponent if they think they're going to burn us out before we attack them to death. Another bolt targeting us with Metalcraft. With Metalcraft, okay. Well, we're going to gain 8 life here. I'm not even going to do anything fancy like waiting for my opponent to untap. I'm just going to do the very boring, very safe play of doing it right now on my main phase. Because I'm very scared of how much life our opponent apparently can gain. Okay, and they conceded to that. So our opponent couldn't beat us on the board, so they decided to try to race us with Burn, which is perfectly reasonable plan, but they did not know we had Lone Missionary, and they did not know we could bounce it to gain another 4 life. 8 total. So I realized I need to make one more switch with this deck. Now that I took out the Face Fetters and all the Spreading Seas, Heliod's Pilgrim only has one target, which is Reality Acid. So a 3-mana 1/2 that goes and finds another slow spell is kind of slow. So I think I'm going to bring in another Dispel to counter those Lightning Bolt and Galvanic Blasts. Alright, our hand is perfectly fine again. We have preordained to try to find white mana, and mana in general since we only have 2 lands in hand. But we have a nice curve out, so our opponent mulliganed to 6, good sign for us. And they mulliganed to 5, and they mulliganed to 4, and they put a card on bottom. Alright. So let's see what we can do to punish this draw. Definitely don't want to draw lone missionaries. We are looking for lands. Well, our opponent could beat us on a Moldafor if we just don't draw any lands. Alright. We could have played a Dreamstalker there, but I'm still holding out hope of drawing an untapped land turn 3. Yeah, nothing doing. Okay, so we'll play this just to get an attacker out and a card out of our hand, basically. Our opponent's not doing anything, though. They're just cycling some Ichor Wellsprings, luckily for us. Kuldotha Rebirth. Okay, well, we have a 1/5, so the 1/1s don't do anything. Oh my goodness. This is awful. So what are we discarding here? That is the question. I guess we're going to get rid of Reality Acid. It's kind of slow, and we have no bounce creatures in hand whatsoever. Opponent has Prophetic Prism, so their colored mana is completely fixed. And they have another Rebirth. So they could try to start attacking through this. They could attack for 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, and do 20 to us, even if we eat a goblin each time. Oh my goodness. 2 lands and a preordain could not get there. Momentary Blink, I suppose, can leave. Don't have time to do that. Opponent plays Glinthawk. Gets to pick up a Prophetic Prism and replay it. And our opponent is going to start trading off goblins for damage. And they even have a Galvanic Blast to get the Dreamstalker out of the way. And we draw a Muldrifter. And I don't think we can win now. If we go Seagate Oracle, Lone Missionary into Journey to Nowhere, we could have a chance. Even then, I don't think so, because our opponent could just have any burn or any other creature here. Sanctum Gargoyle. That's a fun sideboard card. 2/2 flyer. They're going to regrowth a Wellspring. So now we're basically dead on board, even if we remove one thing. Wow. Okay, well, thus ends match 5. So we lost to a Moldafor, ended up at 3-2 overall. Obviously, if our opponent and I had each had real draws, the game would have gone a lot differently. But that's Magic, sometimes that happens. Overall, we went 3-2. We didn't get to have any ridiculous games with Acid Trip, where we took out like 4 or 5 permanents, I don't believe, with the same Acid Trip. We did get to keep our opponent off lands a couple times, which is definitely representative of what this deck can do sometimes. It'll occasionally attack their creatures, but occasionally it's correct just to go after your opponent's mana base if they miss an early land drop or you think you can shut them off of certain colors using your Spreading Seas. As fun as it is to kind of troll your opponent and repeatedly get rid of their lands with a Reality Acid or take them off of the ability to cast spells with the Spreading Seas, I think this might be my least favorite of the decks that we've played so far, just because it feels a little bit inconsistent. You have to draw your spells in a pretty specific order. If you draw, 1 or 2 Spreading Seas, but no way to pick them back up again, then that's not really enough Spreading Seas to mess up your opponent's mana base, and it's not really enough to get value off of either. If you draw Reality Acid without your bounce creatures, or vice versa, then either one is a little bit unimpressive. Obviously, when they're together, they're great, but that's the whole point of the deck, is drawing Reality Acid plus one of those other creatures. I do like Preordain in the deck. It lets you keep a lot of otherwise unkeepable hands by letting you scry to lands or scry to spells, whatever you're looking for. It helps kind of smooth out the draws of the deck, but I still feel it's a little bit more inconsistent than some other decks. One of the things that I feel that it's missing is any really great matchups. I don't feel like there's any deck that I can sit down across from and say, oh, I'm super favored to win this because I'm playing Acid Trip. If these videos did interest you and you do feel like you like the deck, I definitely wouldn't discourage you from getting it. I think it's still a pretty good deck in the format, it's just not quite my cup of tea. We did still go 3-2 in the league overall. More than a positive record, it's a winning record. We won back our playpoint entry. And overall, I think we did a good job of showing what the deck can do and some of what it can't do. Don't forget, if you enjoy this video and you enjoy the series, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can be sure to see when new stuff comes out. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on Twitter at JakeStylesMTG, or you can simply leave a message in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.